Army writing is direct writing. Grammar helps us organize our thoughts, and we can combine words in many ways that will help us to both express ourselves and capture the reader's attention. We also want to avoid the embarrassment of making basic mistakes. Poor writing can have harmful consequences for a military mission, as you will see in this quote from the disastrous charge of the Light Brigade.
Lord Raglan wishes the cavalry to advance rapidly to the front. Follow the enemy and try to prevent the enemy carrying away the guns. Troop horse artillery may accompany. French cavalry is on your left. Immediate. Tell Lord Lucian that the cavalry is to attack immediately.
So where exactly was the cavalry supposed to attack? How were the troops supposed to try to prevent losing guns? Which guns? Troop horse artillery may accompany? How does a person know the criteria for this decision? You can see where I'm going with this. You may find yourself writing briefs that have critical significance, and you need to be completely clear in your communication. To help you write clearly, I will simplify the core sentence structures and show you how to use them. Here is what this video will cover: phrases, clauses, sentences, and the types of sentences. Simple, compound, complex, and compound complex. Why should you be interested in this topic? Aside from the need to be clear, you need to know about phrases and clauses in order to avoid two glaring grammar mistakes: fragments and run-on sentences. Knowing about the types of sentences will give you the tools to develop your professional style. We'll start with the simplest piece, the phrase. A phrase is a group of related words, but it is different from a clause in that it does not contain both a subject and a predicate. As a reminder, the predicate is the part of a sentence that says something about the subject. At the heart of the predicate is the verb, which shows action or a state of being. Examples of phrases are on the bus, after the war, or to their beds. These examples are specifically called prepositional phrases. If you would like to review grammar terms, you can watch my video on the parts of speech. A clause contains both a subject and a predicate and is the next level up from a phrase. A clause can be either a part of a sentence or an entire sentence. It is a group of words with its own subject and verb. An independent clause can stand on its own as a complete thought and often ends in a period. A sentence will always include at least one independent clause. Unfinished ideas can't stand alone and are therefore called dependent clauses. They depend on more information to make sense. In fact, they depend on an independent clause. This is important to know, as I will demonstrate in a minute when we talk about building sentences with correct punctuation. To demonstrate the two kinds of clause, let's look at this sentence you may remember from the parts of speech video. Because the exhausted squad was outside the wire for 3 days, they collapsed when they returned to their comfortable beds. This sentence has two clauses, one independent and one dependent. They collapsed when they returned to their comfortable beds is an independent clause, a thought that stands on its own. It could be punctuated with a period as a complete sentence and be grammatically correct. If all you hear or read is, because the exhausted squad was outside the wire for 3 days, you are left wondering what question this answers. This is called a dependent clause because it doesn't state a complete thought without further information. So, to repeat, a sentence has at least one independent clause, one clause that can stand alone and make sense. Look for these three things when you are evaluating a sentence: a subject that makes sense with the verb, a verb that goes with the subject, and a complete thought. If you do not have these three pieces, you have a fragment. Watch out for fragments. They are a common mistake and can make you seem uneducated. There are many ways to end up with a fragment, but if you keep this tip in mind, you won't create them. Almost every fragment is a result of one of these three things. It is missing a subject, it is missing a verb, or it is an incomplete thought. This includes dependent clauses. Occasionally, you will have a sentence where the subject is there but is not obvious. If you see a sentence like, "Turn off that music," you might ask yourself, where's the subject? While commands, demands, or requests may look like they lack a subject, they actually do have one. It's just invisible. The subject is understood to be you. English grammar could keep you entertained for a lifetime. We will turn now to the 4 basic sentence structures. Knowing these will help you analyze and punctuate your sentences. Simple, 1 independent clause, subject and predicate. Compound, at least 2 independent clauses which are linked by a coordinating conjunction. Complex, an independent clause plus at least 1 dependent clause. And compound complex, 2 or more independent clauses plus 1 or more dependent clause. Now I'll show you examples of each kind of structure. He submitted his leave request. This is a simple sentence, just a subject and a predicate that makes sense. Don't let it throw you if you see something like, "The major and the captain attended the meeting." You see 2 subjects, major and captain, but they act as a unit and are thus part of a simple structure, just a subject and a predicate. Here is a compound sentence, 2 independent clauses combined with a comma and a conjunction. He submitted his leave request and he began planning his vacation. It is compound because it has 2 complete thoughts. In other words, 2 independent clauses linked by a coordinating conjunction. Just a tip. Use the comma before the conjunction, as you can see in this example. Here is an example of a complex sentence, a combination of a dependent and an independent clause. Because his leave request was approved, he began planning his vacation. The first clause, the part before the comma, is dependent. The second one is independent. Finally, here is a compound complex sentence. Because he had days to use or lose, he submitted his leave request and then he booked an exotic vacation. The group of words up to the first comma is a dependent clause. The next 2 groups, which are indicated by the commas, are independent clauses. In these examples, you saw that commas were separating clauses. There are too many comma rules to go into here, but I do have a video on comma usage if you want to know more. Either commas, periods, or semicolons are necessary to separate independent clauses and avoid run-on sentences. I'll show you what I mean. I like cooking. My family tries to save me the trouble on Fridays. Here we are missing a period. Where would you put it? Right, after cooking. I will give you another example. According to the research, it's not buying material things that makes us happier, and we can waste our lives running after money rather than enjoying the simple things. In this sentence, we are lacking a comma. Where would you put it? I will give you a hint. How many clauses do you see? What kind of clauses are they? There are 2 independent clauses, and you need to separate them after the word happier. Good writing is clear writing. It is something you can learn. For the most direct, easy to understand sentence, choose the simple structure. Build from there as necessary, but never forget the reason for Army writing: to communicate. See you next time.